This is Fans on the Run, a podcast made by, for, and about Beatlefest. And now, here's your host, Alexanian.
Hello. Welcome back to Fans on the Run, your sixth favorite Beatles podcast. We're moving up in the world. I think I've said previously, like, your seventh favorite Beatles podcast. But, you know, we're past episode 50 now. We're established somewhat, even though I still get referred to as the new kid on the block, which I kind of am.
Not really, though. There are every day in every way there are newer and brighter. Well, I won't say brighter. Different Beatles podcasts.
Wow, you know how to make a host feel good. But anyways, you have already heard from our guest today, and I haven't even finished the introduction. This is good. Wait, why did I say good like that? That's weird. Anyways,
I think you've been listening too much Rocky and Bullwinkle.
I think that's one thing that could possibly do it for me.
That sounds a little bit like Natasha and Boris.
That does. Again, we're less than 30 seconds in, and we're already getting like really deep insights. But I digress. We have a great guest for you today. He's a fellow podcaster with one of the most popular Beatles podcasts around, called When They Was Fab, Electric Arguments About The Beatles, which he co-hosts with Lonnie Pena, which, through the process of deduction, means there's only one person I could be talking about. Ed Chen, welcome to Fans on the Run.
Well, you could conceivably be talking about Dave Purcell's, who did co-host for the first year of the show when it was going under a different name.
Yeah, but I'm not.
Oh, well, yeah,
I didn't think too deep when I wrote the introduction. I thought, yeah, that's clever. I like that.
Close enough. Well, I'm here, I'm talking, so ha ha ha.
What the hell was that?
I don't know. An exaggerated laugh.
Well, so how are you doing this fine night, evening? I don't know what it is anymore. I've lost all sense of time.
Well, seeing as how you're going to call me a wimp because you're in Canada, we've just hit about 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's damn cold outside.
See, I can't call you a wimp because I don't know what 45 degrees Fahrenheit is off the top of my head. Like, 45 to me sounds like, oh, wow, it's boiling. But it's like, no, that's Celsius.
Let's see, 32 degrees Fahrenheit is at the point at which water freezes. So
yeah, okay, so that's
your zero.
Yes.
So, we're talking about maybe 10 degrees C.
10 degrees? What? Okay, you are a wimp.
Exactly. Well, mind you...
You know what? This is what Google is for. Okay, 7 degrees. Okay,
yeah, there you go.
It's like minus 10 here, minus 10 Celsius, like 20-something degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, as I'm fond of reminding myself, a couple years back when I went to Winnipeg, it was early September, and it was the first snowfall of the year, and it's like...
Well, but that's not Canada, though. That's just Winnipeg.
It was... the difference from when I left to when I landed was probably about 55 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Well, like, the national nickname for Winnipeg is Winterpeg.
Okay.
Because everyone there is miserable and cold.
But it's so pretty.
Is it, though?
Yeah,
Apologize.
It is.
Actually, you know what? Fuck you. I don't have any listeners in Manitoba, according to Podbean. So I'm gonna trash Manitoba all I want.
Well, we can talk about the Jets. Yeah, they're good. They're a pretty good hockey team.
Yeah, although talking about hockey as someone who lives just like an hour outside of Toronto just makes me depressed.
Oh, okay.
It's bad enough when I have to kind of mentally adopt the Montreal Canadiens as my team, because just the Leafs, my God. The Leafs are probably...
What else do I know about Canada?
Rush?
Well, I know that Paul Schaefer comes from Thunder Bay.
Oh, really? Thunder Bay.
You know who Paul Schaefer is, the
David
Letterman's band leader, and he used to be the original Saturday Night Live band leader. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That was Dave's introduction periodically. All the way from Thunder Bay.
Oh wow! I didn't know anyone important actually came from Thunder Bay. That is very, very north. Well,
that's
North
what I
Ontario.
Figured, yeah.
Like a total of 6 people live in the top 3 territories.
Yeah, isn't it 90% of the population lives in 4 or 5 urban areas, and then everywhere else is just sort of random people trudging through snow?
I wouldn't quite say that, but if you look at a map of the population, it is kind of surprisingly close to the U.S. border. With, dots throughout, a bit higher up.
Fair enough.
Except for Ontario. Ontario's the center of the universe.
No.
And there we go. I just lost all my listeners from Quebec.
We don't speak French here, so I just got rid of the rest of them for you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
But, no.
Mon français n'est pas très bien.
Read Paul Schaefer's bio. I'll be here for the rest of my life. I'll give that book a plug. And to turn this around to the topic that we are actually supposedly talking about.
You are a podcast host, aren't you?
Way back in the 80s, Paul Schaefer and the Letterman Band did a video for one of Letterman's late night specials called Dress Cool, which is really fun. You should go and look it out. Go and look for it. It's available on YouTube, and they dress up in the collarless jackets.
Well, half of Schaefer's band are the Fab Four.
Will Lee's the only one who's actually in the Fab Four.
Okay. Well, it was close enough. I knew there was some Letterman people, some people from Conan O'Brien's band.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a weird conglomeration of people who have worked on television talk shows in the United States.
Yeah.
I think they need to recruit somebody from the Roots now.
Yeah. Well, Questlove, they could get him.
Yeah, Questlove does. Questlove is much more of a Beatles fan than you might think, surprisingly.
I mean, really?
Yeah, no, he is. I saw there's a whole interview with Questlove from the 50th anniversary where he talks for a good 5 to 10 minutes about I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Really?
Yeah.
About just I Want to Hold Your Hand.
About just I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Fuck, I host a Beatles podcast, and I don't think I could spend 5 minutes on I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Well, I mean, it's not, it's the whole story, the song, the impact. There's a whole book out there about I Want to Hold Your Hand. So
yeah,
written by the one and only Alan Kozin.
Plug number 2.
Why am I plugging all these people who have nothing to do with me, nothing to do with my show?
So far, we haven't talked about the Beatles, but we've talked at length about Paul Schaefer.
Indeed.
But so you know what, I'll kind of steer things in the right direction and ask the jumping off point question. Ed, how did you first discover the Beatles?
Well, let's see here. We got a couple of stories, both of which I just told on to plug somebody else's podcast, Martin Quibell's Pods Like Us, which you're appearing on in the second season.
I am. I was honored enough to not be in the first season, I guess.
So I won't go into detail, but I will mention a couple of instances.
Saving all the juicy bits for Pods Like Us.
Well, I've already did it, and it's already out there. So we're plugging yet another podcast that is not my podcast, is not your podcast, although I do appear on it. Anyway,
while we're at it, shout out to Talk More Talk.
Tom Hunyadi.
Yeah.
who were not listening.
Insert joke about
We're
suitcase.
doing this instead of listening to them live, by the way.
Yeah, it's funny we say that like it's a joke, but it's kind of true. Love you guys. Anyways, what's the story you will be willing to tell us?
To get back to my story, so as a youngster, my cousin, who sort of lived with us and sort of didn't live with us, but that's a long story. He had a copy of Beatles Forever, which I used to love flipping through.
The Nicholas Schaffner book?
The Nick Schaffner book. He had the hardback. He still does, as far as I know. But anyway, as a little kid, I used to love flipping through it. But there was one page which, like, scared the hell out of me. It was the picture of the Butcher cover. It's like,
oh wow. That would be terrifying.
And it's like, oh wow, here's these guys. They're having fun. They're playing music. They're smiling, and then there's this demented picture of them, right in the middle of this thing. And it's like, at that young an age, it's like, do I really want to go down this road? Well, eventually I did.
Well, it's not even just like the butcher coats and the baby doll and the raw meat. George comes to mind. He looks just like he looks like a serial killer on the front cover.
Absolutely. It's like
no expression in the eyes and just this big grin.
But so that is some amongst my earliest memories of being introduced to the Beatles. And then right around that same time, there was when the Bee Gees film came out.
Ah, yes. Sgt. Pepper.
The Sgt. Pepper film. Capitol reissued...
hey, you forgot about Peter Frampton.
And Peter Frampton. Capitol reissued Pepper, and on the sleeve on the outside, they put this hype sticker that said, the original. And all I remember was like, when I was going shopping with my mom, this was back when records used to be in grocery stores and department stores and everywhere else you might, I would just sort of go off and go flipping through the records. That sticker just attracted me for some reason. I think, it's like I knew the picture because I'd seen it in the Schaffner book, but it's like, ooh, pretty.
The original. Funny you should actually bring that up. That's one that's actually been on my want list for quite some time.
The hype sticker?
Well, a copy of the album, like in the shrink with that hype sticker.
Ah, yeah. So anyway, that was number 2, and I guess number 3, which is exclusive to you. I didn't mention it on
actually
Thoughts Like Us.
Before I lose my train of thought here, do you want to hear something incredibly frustrating?
Sure.
I have a sealed copy of Pepper from 1978. Doesn't have that sticker, but I'm also Canadian, so something else that happened in 1978 in terms of Sgt. Pepper was it was released here on marbled vinyl, and I have no way of knowing if that copy is a marbled vinyl copy or not, and so it just kind of kills me every time I look at it.
They didn't actually print anything on...
I mean,
either side. That's weird.
I think some copies had a hype sticker, but it was just in a normal jacket, I think.
That is truly odd. That's kind of like the original pressings of Pepper from Capitol. Some of them were made from a weird vinyl, and it slightly glows under UV light.
Really?
True fact. Look it up.
True fact.
It wasn't just Pepper. I mean, there are a whole range of albums Capitol pressed from 67.
You don't need to tell people to go look it up. This is the podcast of unsubstantiated claims. Sometimes I just claim things like, hey, guess what? I invented the pencil. You can't disprove that. There's no way of knowing.
Well, I was just explaining to someone who was asking whether they should contribute to Wikipedia or not, that they should, and that Wikipedia has been proven to be as accurate as the online Britannica. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're going off in weird directions, but there's
Fans on the Run, the podcast that goes off in weird directions.
If people want to hear you and I talking Beatles, they have several hours of When They Was Fab there. I plugged my own show finally.
Only took you 15 minutes.
That you've guest hosted on, both with you and with our good friend Queen of All Beatles Media, Kid O'Toole.
Now explain to the kids at home who Kid O'Toole is.
Well, okay, let me finish my story, then I will explain who Kid O'Toole is. So the other one was Dynamite Magazine. I don't know if you know what that is.
Dynamite Magazine.
Dynamite Magazine. It was kind of sort of an educational ripoff of Mad Magazine.
Okay.
When I was in elementary school, every month you would pick. It would go out and you would pick 3, 4, 5 books off of this list, and if you read them all, then you would get a free copy of this magazine, published by Scholastic Books.
Okay, and it's, school-friendly Mad Magazine?
School-friendly Mad Magazine.
Okay.
More sort of pop culture oriented. Anyway.
No, you don't have to explain to me what Mad Magazine is. I was a proud subscriber.
So again, right around that same time, there was an issue which was the Beatles or the Bee Gees, who was the better band, and they had these caricatures of both bands on the cover, and it's like that also that may have been the first time that it's like, yeah, okay, I can get over that butcher cover thing. These guys are cool.
So with the magazine research, were you able to come to a conclusion
about
which was the better band, the Beatles or the Bee Gees?
Well, I was. Now the Scholastic Magazine folks were a bit more circumspect about that answer. These days it would be kind of like throwing the Beatles and BTS up there on the cover of something, and it's like, here, kids, which one do you like?
Oh God, that would be. If that was like posted somewhere, I just wish I could see the comments on that. Just angry BTS stans and Beatles fans just fighting. It's like, yeah, the Beatles may have written the White Album, but BTS has Jungkook.
Well, I will let you get Lonnie and his daughter on the show at the same time. They might be able to provide that entertainment for you.
Well, there you go. Now you have something to look forward to, everybody. So I'll ask. You mentioned the Schaffner book as kind of your introduction, kind of to the Beatles. What was the first Beatles album or record that you remember owning?
I would guess it was the Red Album.
Do you remember anything about that?
Well, the first related album I ever got was the George Harrison album.
Okay, the 1979 one?
1979 one. Then after that, I got was when I was given the Red Album, I guess that Christmas. That would be Christmas of 79.
Okay. And again, since we're like both record nerds, I assume this would have been like the red capital label.
Exactly.
Maybe
exactly.
like with the kind of scripty logo.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have it exactly. And I was playing it on my I had a combo stereo at the time from Radio Shack.
Ooh. I am resisting the urge to do a Borat impression right now. It's like, ooh, King of Castle, very nice.
So yes, and it had an 8-track player on it.
Oh wow, you are the 1%.
there you go. So, and the first time I heard the Rutles album was on 8-track.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I actually heard somewhere that, like, the most popular 8-track of all time, or the one that sold the most copies, was the Rutles.
That wouldn't surprise me, but there was also amongst the highest returned. The reason
Actually, that may be the statistic I'm referring to.
The aforementioned Pepper soundtrack, as the joke goes, was sold gold, returned platinum.
Oh my god! Yeah,
But the Rutles albums, the local record store, this was just about the time that I was old enough to actually get my mom to take me down and leave me alone in the record store for an hour while she went off and ran other errands.
Yeah.
I remember the Rutles display, which just sort of stayed there and stayed there and stayed there, and then it's finally like, okay, I've got an 8-track player. I'll buy one of these 8-tracks.
and it was like a cardboard display standee thing.
Exactly. Yes.
You should have tried to get that.
Well, I wasn't old enough to think to ask record guys to, what are you going to do with this?
Yeah. Well, it took me a while to do that too, and so far it has not paid off, even when I have. Like, I once went to Barnes & Noble when Egypt Station came out, and they had, everyone saw these, like, Paul McCartney display standees, and I'm like, are you, like, going to be done with that soon? Like, are you going to be throwing that out? And so the person took my name, and I'm like, yeah, but can I take it now? Because I, as many of you know, live in Canada, and some of you may not know, Barnes & Noble does not exist in Canada. So this all took place in Buffalo. And long story short, I don't have that display.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah. But life goes on. You mentioned your, like, local record store, like, as a kid. I always like asking people, could you tell me some memories from that place? Because everyone has, like, a strong attachment to the store that, like, they kind of grew up with.
Well, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be of an age where there were actually several different record stores. The big record store locally here is still in operation. It's called Cactus Records and Music.
Okay, I've heard of Cactus, actually.
Well, you probably heard Lonnie and or I talking about Cactus Records and Music. It's more or less the equivalent of Waterloo in Austin.
Okay.
They're much heavier on the used side these days than they used to be, but that was the place where you could go and sort of get all of the official releases, back before it became back before I was into collecting the unofficial releases, the Dutch imports, but and the prices were reasonable.
Dutch imports.
Yeah. And
why do you think that's kind of become the colloquial term for bootlegs?
Well, because for a period there they were actually marketed as Dutch imports. There was a loophole in the law, in the copyright law, and so they could press, in certain countries overseas, they could press live shows, radio shows, the studio outtakes not so much, but if you fake that and said, oh, well, this is a radio show, yeah. and then they could be imported in as legitimate discs.
Well, the term still goes today, because I still see.
Well, exact. So that's how it sort of got stuck. Was for a period of I guess 5 or 6 years, the market went from strictly underground labels to these things which actually looked fairly legitimate.
Yeah.
And they
going
were
from like trading in magazines, like the old like trademark
Exactly.
equality records.
Exactly, and so that was where they picked up the name Dutch Imports.
See, it's things about that I just love learning about, the history of record collecting and all that kind of stuff.
Clinton Halen goes into this in some detail in his book Bootleg, which is worth seeking out if you haven't ever actually read it.
Well, I'll have to dig that out. It's called Bootlegged?
It's Bootleg, just Bootleg.
Bootleg.
The author is Clinton Halen, who's a music writer. I guess it's still in print. If it's not, I'm sure you can pick up a copy cheap through A-Books or eBay.
Oh.
It's really about how the whole bootleg industry got going from the beginning, from the Great White Way, which was the very first of the Get Back bootlegs and the early Dylan bootlegs, through whenever it was that he wrote the book, sometime in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, now that I'm just thinking about early bootlegs, I'm sure you've seen that one clip from like this BBC documentary in the 70s that like John and Yoko were in, talking about bootlegs.
Yep.
I mean, it was mostly about like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, but I love that. It's like if I had a time machine, I'd want to go back to like 1971 London to go to all those stores.
Well, I mean, I'm not May Pang's biggest fan, although I do love her story of going to Beatlefest and snapping up bootlegs for John. the 74 Beatlefest.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I did know John liked some bootlegs, and that he actually sent Paul a copy of a bootleg called like the Decca tapes, even though it wasn't the Decca tapes.
Yeah,
saying,
exactly.
like,
It was BBC stuff.
Yeah,
was that
like,
Yellow Matter Custard, or was I don't remember exactly which one it was, but yeah, that came.
I think it was just. I just saw it mentioned in "You Never Give Me Your Money" by Peter Doggett.
But Dave Morrell tells that story much better than I do, so we'll leave that to him because that's his story to a certain extent. Have you had Dave on?
I have not as of right now.
You're okay. Well, I'm sure you're in the process of trying to book him. He's trying to sell his book now. Yet again, I'm plugging somebody else.
Well,
and I'm sure he'd be happy to do your show.
Plugging is not frowned upon on Fans on the Run. It's sometimes there's more plug than there is show.
Yeah, but I'm plugging everybody else.
Yeah. See, you're like friend to all right now.
There you go.
There you go. So, I want to ask you. It's a more kind of general question. What do the Beatles mean to you?
Well, that's a good question.
Please tell me Martin didn't ask you this already.
No. He did not ask me that. I guess first and foremost, what the Beatles mean is the Beatles mean popular music. And what do they mean to me? They were, before the Beatles, what was I listening to? I remember listening to like novelty records. Chuck Berry's "My Ding-A-Ling" was big on the hit parade at that time. Then there was a period where I was sort of into both Sonny and Cher and the Captain and Tennille. Please tell me you know who the Captain and Tennille are.
Well, as the ancient proverbs say, love will keep us together.
Yeah, a Neil Sedaka song, and at that point, that sort of got me into being interested in the art of songcraft, not necessarily songwriting, but songcraft, because the Captain and Tennille did Muskrat Love, which we won't go there. It's not their song.
The funny thing is that won't be the first time I have gone to Muskrat Love on Fans on the Run. You can thank Kid O'Toole for that, I think.
So anyway, and then sort of from there, that really the first time I got into rock and pop as an entity, as an artistic entity, was with the Beatles, or at least with the solo Beatles. It was George Harrison. I remember the Blow Away video. George with all those toys and the early green screen. That was so much fun for a kid of that age.
It's still a really fun music video.
And
a little creepy, but fun.
So anyway, that sort of kicked me down the street toward the classic rock and what is now my sort of main interest in rock and roll.
Well, you mentioned kind of classic rock. I want to ask, apart from the Beatles, what are the other bands that you really dig?
Well, I'm a big Buddy Holly fan.
Okay,
to start going backwards, and then a lot of the era, the Who, the Stones, the big bands, but the Move, for example.
You are now one of my favorite guests because you brought up the Move unprompted.
So that is a good enough sort of start, I would say. And when it was happening, I didn't get Nirvana, although I really like Nirvana now, for example.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I might get a bit of a hate for saying this. I'm not a big fan of grunge.
Well, like you say, I was of the age when that's really what I was kind of supposed to be listening to, and I guess it was kind of like, well, no, there's all of this over here that I really, really like, and it's like, I just didn't really have the time or the interest at that point in time. The radio was tuned toward what was then halfway on oldies and halfway on what was burgeoning into classic rock as a format.
So I'll kind of move. This is something I know Martin would have asked you. Now that's kind of the whole underlying tone of this show. So how did you get started doing a Beatles podcast?
Okay, well, so it was, first off, believe it or not, today is actually the 5th anniversary. As we're recording this, it's the 5th anniversary of the release of the very first episode of what was then known as Beatling About.
Well, happy 5th anniversary, man.
Yep. No, November 30th, 2015. So, not that that's worth that much, but it's
not that
we've been here 5 years.
Not that anyone's keeping track or anything.
Well, obviously, Podbean and I are. They just took my fee for next year, so we're going to be around at least till 6.
There you go.
But anyway, so to answer, to briefly summarize, I really sort of first got into it. Dinsdale P., who you still see around on Facebook, had one of the very earliest Beatles podcasts, and it was nothing but collated outtakes from various bootlegs.
Okay.
And so, it was a half hour, and it came out weekly, and I really got into that, and that was kind of what got me thinking about, well, gee, what can be done with this format? And then, not too long thereafter was the original Fab Forum.
Okay.
And then from there, things we said today, both of which were, okay, well, this is kind of interesting. What I would like to do is I'd like to kind of combine these two things, and then, maybe have a co-host who's a little bit more discussion, who can carry on a discussion. I guess you can carry on a discussion. I've had you with me a couple weeks now.
Well, I was going to say, is that a half-hearted mention of the incident?
Anyway, so
we're allowed to break the fourth wall on this show.
So I was going, at that point it was just kind of a thought, and so I was going around, I was talking to various people on both an email and DMing and on Facebook, and it's like, what do you think about this idea, what do you think about that idea? But I hadn't actually dedicated myself to actually saying, okay, I'm going to go out and do this and put it out. So I guess it was mid to late September. Kevin Smith, Kevin Smith, the director, Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was doing
Silent
a comedy.
Bob.
Silent Bob. There you go. Now you're sounding like Martin, because that was his reaction exactly. But anyway, he was doing a comedy tour at the time.
I'm sensing a theme here that I'm being compared.
Well, you're the one who wants this show to be different than everybody else's show.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, you're gonna have fun editing this, aren't you?
What do you mean editing?
Okay, hey, put it out. Okay.
You've listened to the show before. You know the shtick.
Yeah, but you do a little bit of editing.
Okay, I do a little bit of editing in the rare cases that I mention an author whose name I shall not name because I'm scared of him, and I've gotten on fights in Facebook groups with, and I think you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Whose initials include the letter G.
No, that's too specific.
Okay.
I'm still not editing it out, but
anyway,
yeah.
To get back to the story, and so at the end, he, and by the way, we talk about how Sam and some of our other compatriots like to talk. Kevin Smith, there's a man who can talk.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the very end of his show, he goes on about how that there are too many people who are taking and not enough people sort of giving back into the world, and that how he thought that podcasting was the perfect medium at the time because nobody was in control of it and nobody can tell you yes you can do this or no you can't do that.
Yeah.
His summary was, the next time you see me, and of course I haven't seen him since then, but nonetheless, you need to go out and do something to, quote, push whimsy, unquote, into the world, which is a phrase I really like, by the way, pushing whimsy. It's like, yeah, I mean, granted, it sounds like someone who smokes more joints than is healthy for an ox, but...
Yeah.
I still... an ox?
Close enough.
Close enough.
Some sort of farm animal.
And now I'm imagining a cow just chewing down a field of.
And of course, you know what the perfect soundtrack for that would be. Pink Floyd's Adam Hart Mother.
Anyway, so to finish, that pushed me over. It's like, okay, I've been thinking about doing it, and it's not. I'm not doing it because Kevin Smith is telling me to do it, but it's like,
it's not
he's
like
right.
It's not like Silent Bob has a gun to your head saying, "Good, now make an episode about Beatles box sets."
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. So that was what sort of that, and the fact that someone did actually agree to do it with me. I know you're a fan of solo podcasts, but I'm much happier having someone to sort of bounce things off of.
It's not I'm a fan of solo podcasts. It's just that I do one. Except I never do it alone. It's I always have someone with me. So it's kind of like I have a co-host, but I get to keep all the credit.
Rotates weekly. Of course, I've been there as well, but we won't go there anyway. So that's that story. I think we got through all of it.
So, you mentioned the Beatlefest earlier. Are you the type who goes to the Beatlefests?
I have. I mean, it doesn't help that Mark came here twice and has never returned.
Mark?
Lapidus.
Oh, Lapidus.
Yeah, the Fest for Beatles fans. So I mean, I did go to both of those.
When you said he came here, you mean to
Houston.
Houston.
Your listeners may not know the show originates out of Houston, Texas, and Lonnie and I are both very proud of that fact.
That's actually the only city in Texas I've been to. I liked it.
Interesting.
I really liked it.
So, I really enjoyed to carry on from that topic. I really enjoyed this year when Lonnie and Kit and I did a virtual panel. Oh, I never answered that question. I will answer that question in a minute here. When Lonnie and Kit and I did a virtual panel for the virtual fest, since there are no in-person fests in 2020. Mwahaha, says the evil COVID virus.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Ed Chen is the reason why there's no Beatlefest.
That is right. Anyway,
that was a laugh of guilt.
So, when the fests return, I'd like to go. I would like to go. Not so much to go. I mean, and going is fun. I mean,
yeah.
The bands and the sound alike, and the hanging out in the merch room, and all that is a really good time. But I would like to go. To plug the podcast, and I don't know about you, but we always do get a little bump every March and every August. So there are definitely people at the fest who talk about podcasts.
Well, I can't say that with certainty because I haven't had a podcast
since there's been a fest.
Yeah.
You've only been in existence in the COVID era, so we'll have to see what happens next year.
I'll exist in the post-COVID era, though. Fans on the Run will make it.
Well, as long as
you don't sound optimistic.
As long as there is a post-COVID era, I'm not. My pessimism does not lie with Fans on the Run. My pessimism lies with the vaccine and what may come afterwards.
I think it'll all work itself out.
No,
us
fingers
humans,
crossed. But
us humans always figure it out.
To get us back to what we were talking about, if it were closer, I would go to Fest more frequently. But we'll see the next time that there is a Chicago Fest. It's a lot of fun, and it's always good to get together with these people that you interact with virtually on an almost daily basis in person.
Well,
it's like should there be a Chicago Fest in August next year? I fully hope that you would.
Oh yes, I would
get your passport stamped and show up, and so.
Oh yeah, whip out my Nexus card and drive down to Chicago.
There you go.
Because if it happens in Chicago, I'm there. That is, if the Canadian government says I can go.
Well, that is something else.
Yeah.
They're already saying that the sports teams are probably not going to be allowed to play in Canada next season.
Well, I know the Raptors are stuck in Florida somewhere.
Yeah, and now they're saying the Blue Jays may be in Buffalo again.
Well, Buffalo's a bit better than Florida, because at least with enough high-powered telescopes from Niagara Falls, you might be able to get a glimpse of the Blue Jays.
Well, we won't go there.
Oh, Blue Jays is too sacred subject.
No?
Yeah.
Oh, for you, okay.
Yeah, I'm a Canadian. We're proud.
Well, Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is sacred.
Niagara Falls, Canada is just like Vegas for kids.
Yeah, I don't remember why, but somewhere along the way in my youth, I went with my folks and we drove through, and I was surprised at how much tat there was on the Canada side of Niagara Falls.
It's also like the Canadian side has tat, but the American side is just well, I'm not from there, so I can't say anything too disparaging.
Well,
they're trying their best.
They're trying their best. Well, we the two terrible things from that trip. We went to the Ripley's Believe It or Not Wax Museum on that side.
On the American or Canadian side?
On the Canadian side.
Oh yeah.
And I have no idea why. And none of the figures. All I remember is that none of the figures looked anything like they should have.
There's a rock and roll wax museum in Niagara Falls that has not one but two different sets of Beatles figures.
Okay, and then the other thing was when I learned the lesson: don't ever go to a Chinese restaurant that has no Chinese people working inside of it.
Did that actually happen?
That actually happened. Yep.
Oh wow.
So
Niagara Falls, Canada, everybody.
There you go.
Yeah. It's nice. I back before everything went to shit, we would go down to like Niagara Falls like once a month, mainly to do cross-border shopping in Buffalo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course. Now I just associate the falls with the scene in Imagine John Lennon, with God playing. Because that's the only time that the echo that they slathered on actually works.
I'm embarrassed to say I haven't seen Imagine John Lennon. Is this the 1988 one?
Yeah, the Andrew Solt one. Yes.
I have not seen this.
Oh, well, I mean it is archival footage, but it's John and Yoko standing at the falls and God is playing, and the thing about Imagine John Lennon is that this was the early days of surround sound in theaters, so they in order to create this surround sound mix, they just slathered echo all over everything musically, and most of it they've got a terrible copy of the Shea footage playing, and they have the studio help over it just slathered in ridiculous.
Well, I have seen that
and fake anyway, but so once they get to the end of the Beatles, you got this scene with John and Yoko standing over Niagara Falls, and the camera pulls back, and you have this echo-laden version of God playing, and then once it's pulled all the way back, it's I don't believe in Beatles, and it's like, wow, that's the only time that works.
Yeah. Well, now I gotta see this for all its terrible early surround sound glory.
Yeah.
Well, now I kind of want to transition into my favorite part of the show, where we get very opinionated. We can have some electric arguments, so to speak.
Anyway.
Yes. Oh,
you enjoy my random laughter, don't you?
I really am. I am enjoying it thoroughly. So... This is a question I don't normally ask, but I just thought of it and I realized I should ask it more. What's your favorite Beatles book?
Well, I mean, tune in.
Okay, apart from Lewison. Apart from Lewison, because that's just like, fair. Lewison's just like next tier. And Mark, if you're listening to this, and I know you are listening to this, you have my email.
Well, he did a live chat earlier today, but
what? Did he?
Yeah, he did. Beatles and black music.
Damn it. Well,
anyway, so to answer your question, again, that changes frequently, but right now I'm going to go with Chuck Gunderson's 2-volume Some Fun Tonight.
Ah, yes. That's one that's on my wish list, but I've been told if I get it, I should get the hardcover, like, big version.
Yes.
But that the shipping would also, like, be extraordinary to get to Canada.
Would it?
For some reason, like, it costs a bit to ship to Canada.
I mean, it is ridiculously heavy, but still,
that's it, I think.
I wouldn't expect it. Well, anyway,
like,
so
for an average book, like, say the size of I'll use just for size purposes, like Ken Womack's Solid State Abbey Road book. Like a book that size, it would cost like $20 to ship to Canada.
Okay, well, and
or 20 American to ship.
20 American. Okay, so
yeah.
Anyway, so that's all of these questions, favorite song, favorite album, favorite solo song, favorite solo album, favorite book, all of these sort of change depending upon what I'm working on or what I'm thinking about at any given moment. But Gunderson is always going to be, the pictures alone make it worth owning that book.
Well, you kind of mentioned some other hypothetical questions, and it's like you read my mind. Now I go into what I like to call the quick-fire questions.
All right.
What is your favorite Beatles song right now? I'll add right now to the questions.
Sure. Let's go with the night before. Let's go with something weird.
But with this, you have to like back up your answer. Like, why the night before?
Well, it's one of my favorite songs off. It's one of my favorite early songs, and Paul's bass line and his vocal are just smoking in that song.
Oh, I actually did a show earlier tonight all about the Help album on someone else's show, who I will not name. And we did bring that up, that Paul was doing some really smoking things. Like, I think he was doing, like, bass chords.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. God, McCartney's just a phenomenal bass player.
Yeah, I mean, that's... And, yes, at the moment, that's what's been on my mind at the moment, is the night before.
And I'll ask, in terms of, like, what's your favorite Beatles album right now?
Now, that's Abbey Road, and that very rarely changes. Occasionally it'll be Revolver, occasionally it'll be Pepper, occasionally it'll be Rubber Soul, but 90 to 95% of the time it's Abbey Road. Okay,
and why is that?
Well, can you beat the medley? I mean, side 2... And then, you got George, you got Here Comes the Sun, and you got Something. There is nothing better. If only John were a little bit more... But, even with John, you still got Come Together.
Yeah. And it's... Oh, God. Now, for some reason...
The performances are just... Probably their best playing from their whole time together as a group is on Abbey Road.
Okay, that I will agree with. They were at their, like, musical ability peak on that record.
And Ringo was really getting into those calfskin drums.
Oh, yeah. Using that nice maple Hollywood kit.
So go read Ken Womack's book. He explains a lot about why recording it was so special, but just as a listening experience, it's a great album.
But now this is actually, before we get into the least favorites, since we talked quite a bit about the solo Beatles, I want to kind of rattle off like favorite John song right now.
Starting Over.
Okay, favorite Paul song right now?
It's gonna be something Queenie Eye.
Oh man, you are on fire today with your answers. Queenie Eye. Oh my god.
Well, I mean, I love the new album.
So do I. It is phenomenal. I think that's maybe why I hate Egypt Station especially, because coming after New, it was just like such a disappointment.
Well, I like Egypt Station, but I don't like it as much as I like New.
Because I'm holding it to the standard of New.
Perhaps so. I mean, Chaos is probably a better album than New, I would say, but I really like New.
What is your favorite Paul album?
For the moment, I'm going to go with Chaos, although I like Flowers in the Dirt a lot. I'm also a big believer in Band on the Run, but the thing about the so-called biggies, Band on the Run, Ringo, Imagine, All Things Must Pass, although less so with All Things Must Pass since it's a double album set, I've just played them so much.
Mm-hmm. They've just kind of lost a bit of specialness.
Just a bit of the specialness, yep.
Yeah. I'll actually backpedal. What's your favorite John album?
I'm a big fan of the 1980s stuff, of the Double Fantasy Milk and Honey stuff. I also really like Plastic Ono Band. I'm really looking forward to the box next year now that we know that that's coming. Well,
when this will be uploaded, it will be this year, later this year.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, as it says on the website, announcing 2021. It's like, oh, you're announcing that 2021 exists, or you're announcing that there will be an announcement in 2021.
Well, at least they're acknowledging. At least they're acknowledging that there will be an announcement. Unlike All Things Must Pass, which is just like, here's the new remix from something that might come. It's like,
well, Danny did say, stay tuned. We've got more coming in 2021.
Yeah.
That's almost the same as saying, oh, we're going to be announcing something sometime in 2021.
The announcement of the announcement.
The weird thing is that 159 remixes. It's like, how do they even get 159 tracks for Plastic Ono? And although people will throw rocks at me for this, they really should put Yoko Ono, Plastic Ono Band in that box.
Oh, they probably will.
Those two albums go together. Even if you don't listen to it, those two albums still go together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they'll probably work something out. Yoko's in control of the John Estate. John Estate talks to Calderstone Productions. Licensing deal gets struck up with whatever it's secretly Canadian or whatever Sean's label is, Chimera.
Yep.
I think they could work something out.
But I will say, and that may be how you get to 159 remixes.
Yeah. Outtakes from Plastic Ono Band, or outtakes from Yoko's Plastic Ono Band. And I could see some stuff like the Toronto, Live Piece in Toronto, maybe getting thrown in there. Because that's also Plastic Ono Band.
Yeah. I guess the other thing that they could do is they could put in some of Yoko's live stuff from the 90s and the aughts.
They could do that. They could do that.
And that was a really fun show. I wasn't certain. I saw that show in Oakland.
Really?
Yeah. I saw the Yoko Ono Plastic Ono Band show in Oakland. And actually, our musical director, Jae-Young Kim, he's friends with Deerhoof, who was the opening act.
Okay.
And he almost got us backstage, but not quite.
So close, yet so far.
So close. But anyway.
Moving to George, what's your favorite George song?
George song. Just for the sense of humor, I like this song.
That is, the video is also really good for this song.
Well, and Billy Joel would later steal that whole concept.
Yeah. Although Billy Joel's song did not have Ronnie Wood and drag in the video.
This is true.
Yeah, this is an undisputable fact. Favorite George album? I'll skip Ringo because there's not enough.
I like Cloud 9.
Okay. Cloud 9's good.
You know, a lot of people don't like the production, but I would kind of like to see a slightly stripped back version of Cloud 9, but
de-80sified.
De-80sified.
Although kind of almost sadly de-Jeff Lynnified.
Well, I mean,
I hate to say it because I love that man. I love Jeff Lynne. Like, I've seen Jeff Lynne's version of ELO. I love everything Jeff Lynne's done. His production is a little heavy sometimes.
I mean, in One Plus, they did just a touch of removal of that on Free as a Bird and Real Love. If they went to that level with Cloud 9, I would be in favor of that.
Do you know what really pisses me off when it comes to Free as a Bird? The fact that they went through this big ordeal of cleaning up this cassette tape of the songs, when for Real Love there was already like a released version that was fairly clean. That they
it was the guitar version, not the piano version.
True. But I think even like the piano version, as well as Free as a Bird, had already been done as part of the Lost Lennon tapes.
Yes.
Already in cleaner quality.
Yes, well, and throwing people back to the episode that you and I did back in December, you know, one of the things that I would really wanted to see was a Lost Lennon tapes box.
Oh, that would be nice. That would be very big.
Well, I mean, on the internet you can find the entire radio series.
You can, but how many CDs or LPs would that take up?
Well, most of the time that is traded around as MP3s on DVDs. And there it's only like 8 or 9.
Yeah, but how many songs can they fit on those like DVDs? Like
quite a few.
If they decided to do like a mass market commercial on CDs and LPs.
Well, yeah, obviously they're not going to release the whole series that way. That they would have to sit down with Sean and figure out a release policy. But they could probably get, I don't remember if it was that show or somewhere else. You know, Elton just put out
the Jewel
an 8
box.
CD, the Jewel box. I would like a Lost Lennon tapes box could be at least that big.
Well, do you know what they could do, which would actually be really cool? Set up like a mail subscription service and do like, I think the original LP series was like 40 LPs, like one a month, and it's all of the Lost Lennon series.
You're talking about the bootleg series, which just sort of collected the music and selected other things, not the. Well, I mean, they could take a page from Dylan and do it that way.
Yeah, because I'd do that. I'd sign up for like a subscription service.
But
anyways, we're not here to compliment the Beatles. What is your least favorite Beatles song?
I'll go with Revolution Number 9, although I appreciate Revolution Number 9.
Okay. Not an uncommon answer. What
it breaks up side 4, but I still we were talking about the Fab Four earlier. Their live version is pretty incredible.
Well, I haven't seen theirs, but I saw the Analogs do a version of Revolution.
They also, the analog. Oh, you've actually seen the Analogs?
Not live. I saw a video.
Oh, okay, yeah, no.
They only perform in like mainland Europe
because they can't bring all the equipment over to the States, which is a real shame.
No, I know, but I'm sure they could source the equipment from somewhere in the States.
Most, I don't know if they can source all of it. You know, the way, well, we're talking about the analogs, so what your listeners may or may not know who or what the analogs are. They are a group who really works at playing Beatles records in the same way that an orchestral piece is performed. They have sourced all of the original instruments that were used when the Beatles performed the albums, and they have enough players on stage. You know, they're not a suits and boots band,
No.
by any stretch. So they source enough players that they can do double track vocals. You actually have multiple people singing at a time, for example, and you have the exact instruments playing at the exact time. It's as close as you will ever get in a live performance to a Beatles album.
Like they have, I always I'm always impressed when I see them do this. Like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, they actually have like a Lowry Heritage organ playing the bit. And I can't for the life of me remember the name of it. But whatever that like little keyboard thing is on Baby You're a Rich Man.
Yeah, clavulin.
The clavulin. That. Thank you, Ed. They do that. And, you know, it's not hard to impress me.
Well, I mean, and even though they will tell you they're not actually trying to sing like them, it can't help but sounding like them when everything else falls into place.
Yeah. So, least favorite Beatles song, Revolution 9. What's your least favorite Beatles album?
Now, I'm one of the ones who likes all of them, but and I'm not going to say Beatles for Sale because Beatles for Sale, you know, that's too easy. The Yellow Submarine soundtrack.
Okay.
I know that's also easy, but
you know, some people have a hard time picking one, but
and again, I like the George Martin orchestration on side 2, but is it really a Beatles album?
No. Well, now I get to ask, in terms of solo, what's your least favorite John Lennon song?
Well, Mama, I Don't Want to Be a Soldier.
Really? Off of Imagine.
Off Imagine. It has never struck a chord with me. You know, it's a good rock song, but it doesn't rock hard enough, and the anti-war sentiment just doesn't quite strike well with me.
What's your least favorite album, John Lennon album?
We won't go with the experimental albums because that would be easy to say Life with the Lions, but Mind Games?
Really?
That's hard.
Mind Games?
Oh no! Sometime in New York City.
There we go.
That.
That's what I was. I was anticipating that one.
Yeah. I completely forgot about Sometime in New York City, but
well, I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
It's the only Beatles-related song I can think of that has the N-word in it.
Oh well.
Oh, God bless John Lennon.
Well, and to save you the trouble, least favorite Paul McCartney song, Freedom.
Yes, that's the correct answer. What's your least favorite Paul album?
I like the Fireman albums. I know that's not what you're asking, but I do like the Fireman.
Oh, I like the Fireman albums.
Driving Rain. I got to go with. I got to go with the consensus.
You got to hate on for 2001, Paul.
Well,
yeah,
it makes sense that the worst album would have the worst song on it.
If the shoe fits. And lastly, because again, I won't bother with Ringo. What's your least favorite George song and album?
Okay. Probably Somewhere in England, although that would not be the case if it was the original Somewhere in England.
Yeah.
I really like what he actually handed into them. What came out is a little bit lukewarm.
Well,
least favorite song, George's cover of Bye Bye Love.
Really?
It's not good.
Yeah. Fair enough. And now we are out of the quick fire questions, which ended up not being very quick or fire. And so I'll finish off with
to go with the question you didn't ask. Ringo, again, I like Ringo, but I've overplayed it, so I'm going to go with Time Takes Time on album. As far as song, there's a lot of Ringo songs that I like. Right now, his cover of Don't Be Cruel, that's really a nice kicking version.
Now, I'm not familiar enough with the Ringo solo catalog. When did that come out?
It was around Time Takes Time.
Okay.
He put out, that was the B-side. Well, it was one of the songs on a CD single. B-side is not quite an accurate description.
Yeah. So now I'll ask you the final kind of the big question. Why do you think the Beatles still matter?
Well, art matters. The Beatles matter because Shakespeare matters, because anything, as long as there are people who are willing to engage in thoughtful speculation, there are the Beatles. Yeah, now I'm starting to sound like an acid casualty, but you get what I'm saying.
Thoughtful discussion and speculation. That is not what this show is, though.
Well, yeah. Again, have fun editing this.
C'est la vie.
How long have we been going here?
We're just about at the end, and now I turn it over to you. If there's anything you haven't plugged already, what would you like to plug?
You can find When They Was Fab at whentheywasfab.podbean.com. Please join our Facebook group. And of late, Ethan Alexanian has been guest hosting, while my regular co-host Lonnie Pena has been off dealing with some issues better left unsaid.
Yeah.
2020 incarnate.
2020 has not been a good year, to put it lightly. I mean, without 2020, there'd be no Fans on the Run. But...
Well,
actually, that may be a bad thing to some people. I've realized that as the words were coming out of my mouth, like some fucking, Statler and Waldorf ass fucker in the comments would be like, yeah, that's why 2020 sucks. Ho, 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 ho.
We won't go there.
Is Statler and Waldorf too sacred of a subject?
No, that just seems like an appropriate thing to say.
Yeah. And yeah. Now I almost forgot to do my whole spiel, which I keep forgetting to do, but I'll try and do it anyways. 1, 2, 3. If you're watching this on YouTube, which a lot of you do, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, that little red button right below the video. And also, hit that little bell notification icon so you get notified every time a new episode of Fans on the Run comes out, which is usually Fridays. What
about my podcast, then?
I just let you. Okay, hold on. Ed, continue with your plug.
No. The whole point was just to, John and his What About My Book, then.
Yeah.
That was the whole reason I thought I would shout that out. I didn't want... people won't get it, but...
No, I know.
You get it and I get it.
And those are the only two people who need to get it.
Exactly.
But where was I? I lost my train of thought. Please like the video if you liked it. If you didn't like it, please like it anyways. If you have any comments, leave them in the comments. again, the episode is also available to stream, if you aren't streaming it, about everywhere podcasts can be found. And I'm sure Ed can empathize with this, as he is a fellow podbeaner. I don't know where my show is half the time. There are so many platforms.
Well, especially nowadays, Stitcher, the Audible now carries podcasts. So, basically you can't stick your toe out without dipping into a podcast.
But the usual suspects, you can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, you can find us on Google Podcasts, you can find us on Stitcher, iHeartRadio.com. Basically just Google Fans on the Run podcast and you'll find us somewhere. And lastly, we're on social media, we're on Facebook at Fans on the Run podcast, we're on Instagram where I post all the artwork for the shows, at Fans on the Run podcast, and we're on Twitter at Fans on the Run pod. I couldn't fit Fans on the Run podcast, so that's why that's the one sticking out like a sore thumb. There we go. Did I do it? I think I did.
I think you did. Thank you very much for having me on. Despite having appeared with Martin Quibell on Pods Like Us recently, this is a quite unique show.
Oh, thank you. That's what I strive for. Again, unique could also mean unique doesn't mean good or bad. We'll leave that up to the audience.
All right.
But to everyone else out there, thank you for listening. You can go home now.
Fans on the Run is produced by Ethan Alexanian. Additional voiceovers by Richard Phillip. This has been a Showtown production.